Hello and welcome to Quays News. I'm Emmanuel Morigby.
And I'm Jason Darby. Here's what's coming up on the programme today. By-election drama in Rochdale as Labour remove support for their candidate just 2 weeks before polling day.
And find out about plans to cut emissions on the roads of Greater Manchester.
Bolton welcomes its first legal hypnosis performance in over 40 years after a performer works his magic.
I was really torn 50-50 as to whether it was going to get put ahead, but we've changed legislation effectively now. The way they're going to deal with this in future is going to be different.
It's rare a party loses a by-election before the vote has even taken place, but that's what's happened in Rochdale. Labour have withdrawn support for their candidate Azhar Ali and suspended him from the party following out comments he allegedly made about Jewish people in the media.
In Rochdale today, political correspondent Christian Allen.
When you vote in an election, you expect a selection of choices, but when Rochdale voters go to the polls in 2 weeks' time, they'll be without a Labour candidate. That's after the party removed their support for Rochdale councillor Azhar Ali. The party had previously showed support for Mr Ali after comments he'd made about the 7th of October attacks, but they changed their position once more comments were leaked that were negative about Jewish people in the media. Mr Ali was at a meeting that was also attended by Graham Jones. Now, he was the Labour candidate for Hinburn and a former MP, but he's subsequently been suspended by the party as well. All of this happening within an election year, of course, but the focus now will shift towards Rochdale and the vote on the 29th of February as voters prepare to leap to the polls.
Last week, the BBC revealed that waiting times for cancer treatment in England are at an all-time high. Our health correspondent Peter Johnson tells us more.
That's right, Emmanuel, and it marked the 11th year running that the average wait time for cancer treatment in England has increased. In August 2023, the NHS set 3 revised targets for diagnosing and treating cancer. It missed all 3 of those targets. One of the targets was for 85% of patients who were given urgent referrals for a cancer screening to begin treatment within 2 months or 62 days of their referral. Across 2023, just 64% of these patients were diagnosed and had begun treatment within 62 days. The NHS has set a new short-term target of 70% by March 2024, but even this looks remote. In real terms, this shortfall meant that last year almost 100,000 people in England had to wait over 2 months to begin their cancer treatment following an urgent referral. According to a study last December, this can have life-threatening consequences. The study revealed that a 4-week wait for cancer treatment can, in urgent cases, increase the risk of death from cancer by between 6 and 8%. There may be some cases in which treatment may be legitimately delayed. For example, some treatments may take more planning and some patients may need prehabilitation before the treatment begins. However, in many cases, the delays to treatment are completely unavoidable and can be life-threatening. Another study in December analysed cancer deaths across England between 2002 and 2019. It found that Manchester, along with other northern cities Liverpool, Hull and Newcastle, had the highest rate of cancer deaths among under 80s in the country. The north has less access to specialised hospitals and advanced treatments, and the chance of dying from cancer before the age of 80 is almost twice as high in these northern cities as it is in parts of the south, including London. This highlights stark inequalities across the country and points to an urgent need to strengthen local public health and screening programmes.
Campaigners say they're not giving up on a proposed clean air zone. Transport for Greater Manchester no longer wants to charge buses, taxis, vans and lorries to use congested roads. Authorities now plan to invest more in electric buses and introduce grants to help taxis lower emissions. The government will make the final decision after more consultation.
When you look at the data, most journeys in private vehicles tend to be under 5 kilometres or even less, maybe under 3 kilometres. So those short journeys are creating a massive volume of journeys in Manchester, and it's important that we take those short journeys and change them into sustainable journeys.
Inspectors in Tameside have found vulnerable children remain at risk of harm due to serious failures in children's services. Tameside Council says it accepts it must do better.
The UK's inflation rate has remained at 4% month on month for the first time in 10 months. Gas and electricity prices have seen the biggest jump in costs, while food prices remained largely the same.
To the shop and came back at a later time, which is when...
A tax on retail workers rose 50% in the year to September 2023. That's according to the British Retail Consortium. The number of reported shoplifting incidents also hit its highest level on record.
And tributes have been paid to the legendary DJ and Radio 2 presenter Steve Wright, who's died at the age of 69. He presented shows across BBC Radio 1 and 2 for over 40 years.
I think it's that community feel that we can give to the local area, because if we don't have a voice in the community, who else is going to do it?
As tributes continue to pour in for Steve Wright, yesterday was World Radio Day. We went down to a local radio station to find out more.
People across Manchester welcoming the Year of the Dragon.
You will watch the rest of this programme and you will like it. Hypnosis is back in Bolton after a 40-year ban.
I was really torn 50-50 as to whether it was going to get put ahead, but we've changed legislation effectively now. The way they're going to deal with this in future is going to be different.
Good news for fans of hypnotism, as this week a comedy hypnotist is working his magic to try and persuade a local council to overturn a decades-old ban on the act.
A warning, this report contains flashing images.
And you're back in the room, or the Albert Hall, should I say. This weekend, Bolton welcomed its first legal hypnosis performance in over 40 years. Robert Temple is the hypnotist who prompted this review in legislation. He explained the complicated licensing process.
Ordinarily, the process is dead simple. The councils around the country will have a form that you can fill in, and so we got in touch with Bolton Council and said, can we have the form? And they said, oh, we just don't license hypnosis shows. And we thought, that's a bit weird. And in the end, I spoke to some legal people, and they advised that the Bolton Council speak to their legal team, and then that eventually went back to the licensing team, who then took that to the licensing committee, who are elected councillors rather than employed staff. And they had to have a meeting and discuss it and have a vote. It's a really good day for hypnotists. Other people who want to perform in Bolton, in pubs and clubs and bars and things, can do it now, or well, will be able to do it soon, once this process is revised. And so yeah, it's a really big day, and this is a big domino to start knocking down the other dominoes for the other towns that still have this ban in place.
Do you have any recommendations to councils to make this process a bit easier?
I think, first of all, start a dialogue with the hypnotist. We understand this law really well for the most part, because we have to deal with it all the time. Most councils don't have to deal with this very often. So because it's such a niche thing, we can sort of advise and help. And we're here because I think regulation is great. I think these checks are great. I think all of this licensing stuff is important. There just has to be a process in place.
Councillor Fielding, who helped grant the licence, is optimistic about the future of hypnotism in Bolton.
The problem that we had in Bolton was that this has been written into the council's licensing policy for more than 40 years. So what I want to do next is see that that is repealed, so that when somebody applies to do a hypnotism show in Bolton again in the future, they don't have to go through this convoluted process of calling all of the councillors together. I hope that it puts Bolton on the map as somewhere that welcomes hypnotist acts. I would absolutely like to see more things that attract more people into the town centre, and if hypnotism is something that has a big draw, then yeah, we'd absolutely love to see far more of it happen.
Alex Mackay, Quays News.
Well, do you think hypnotism should be made legal? Get involved in the discussion at Quays News using the hashtag Quays News.
From dancing to dragons, celebrations for Chinese New Year have been in full swing. Victoria Haynes reports.
Lunar New Year has transformed Manchester this weekend, illuminating the city from day to night. Hundreds of people took to the city's Chinatown to watch the parade, try the food, and celebrate the Year of the Dragon. So why is this festival so important? And why have all the communities in Manchester warmed to it so much? I wanted to know how this time of year affects the Waiyan society and the work they do in the Chinese community.
I think Lunar New Year is every year very important for our communities, but mainly about with our family come together. So it's important for maintaining the traditional and the family unity, because we are celebrating with the community. So the community celebration is important about promoting community unity or cohesion. Circle here has been living in Manchester for over 35 years and believes it's one of the best cities in the UK to celebrate this festival. I think we enjoy the celebration, but one is the population is quite quite high, the city. Hong Kong Chinese people living here quite a long time actually. So this is traditional. And then we have big Chinatown and big community center. But also we want to share that culture to much wider community. A lot of people travel from, I think, all over different places and all over the world come to Manchester.
And how have you found living in Manchester and the Chinese community in Manchester? What's that been like?
I engaged with the Wai Yin for a very long time. The population change, and also not just, we talk about Chinese community, but people from Hong Kong, from China, from Vietnam, from Malaysia, from Singapore. So we all have a people access service from East Asia.
The Year of the Dragon symbolises authority, abundance and good fortune, something everyone here is hoping for in the next 12 months.
Now, as the world of media pays tribute to Steve Wright, this week saw World Radio Day. Our reporter Thomas Robertson went to a radio station in Wythenshawe to find out more.
In a quiet corner of the Wythenshawe Forum, Dave Cox is about to go live with his lunchtime show. He is part of a diverse team of over 50 voluntary presenters that self-produce their shows around the clock to give the local area radio show that they can call their own.
I think it's that community feel that we can give to the local area, because if we don't have a voice in the community, who else is going to do it? Let's have Coldplay, It's Fits You here on Out to Lunch with Davy Cox.
It should come as no shock that the BBC have recently announced the creation of 4 brand new stations. Does this mean that radio's here to stay? And will it have a place in the hearts of younger generations? Legendary presenter Dotun Adebayo certainly thinks so.
The BBC being the best place for radio, I mean, we've got more radio stations than everybody else, and it's the only radio station, or it's the only broadcasting corporation, I should say, that can start new stations. The younger audience today will be the older audiences of tomorrow, and eventually they'll find their way to radio, but radio's got to be prepared for them.
But radio isn't all about the big corporations. There are hundreds of community-led stations across the country that are powered by volunteers.
The favourite thing is sort of when the listeners ring in.
But I don't think radio will stop. It'll continue going in one form or another.
And I just think community radio is about connecting, and radio is a brilliant way of doing it.
Get in touch with your local community radio station and see whether they're taking anybody on, and just go for it.
Thomas Robertson, Quays News.
Breakdancing is now an Olympic sport. Dan Keane went to a new club in Manchester to try it out for himself.
Original gangster.
From the streets of New York to the grand stage of the Paris 2024 Olympic Games, breakdancing has gone from being a party dance to a worldwide competitive art form, set to make its Olympic debut. Unlike its beginnings on the streets, breaking has evolved into a sport with a fixed set of rules that make for fair competition. Manchester's first official breakdancing club, Breaking Beat, was opened last year by Emmanuel Agozi. But is breaking a sport, or is it an art?
In the Olympics it will be amazing, it will be mass media, it will be great, but we won't be doing anything different than we have been doing. You know, breaking is a global sport already without the Olympics. It's if you compete, you're in a sport, right? Quickly, we want to be a sport. I don't think it's like being a sport is what we are like as breakers or b-boys. We're like, oh, we want to be a sport, but economically, yeah, absolutely.
Manchester Breaking Bees now welcome over 50 breakers a week, with the sport recently receiving a £135,000 investment.
And I think they find the music cool, and I think the hype over the last year or so has probably helped with the Olympics.
Team GB's Karam Singh won a silver medal at the European Championships in Manchester last year, and hopes are high for his medal chances this summer.
And we couldn't come all this way without trying, so guys, teach me some moves.
Okay, so a basic move that we do is like this. So you get your leg and put it to that side.
Original gangster.
Thank you all for joining us. That's all from Quays News tonight.
Join us next week again. Thank you and have a lovely evening.